Yeah, good morning. Welcome to Yaad Vibez early edition. Probably earliest live me do on the channel, is it? Yeah, Melissa bring me out, show people them want go on, what's the new update. Stay tuned. Big up all the massive them. Yeah, this is Yaad Vibez, the people's channel. Yaad is supporting Yaad is. Alright, we're going to check out the new update, see what go on, how is everything going with Melissa. As we can see, Melissa actually hitting 185 miles per hour. God damn. This is like a Ferrari coming at you full speed. But anyway, I check out and see what going on all over the place. You see it. Make sure your mic, everything ready. Pause. Alright, TVJ live. I see what going
on. We're just trying to get that feed up. Yes. So let me go to Sandy Williams, who is in St. Anne. Sandy?
Good morning, Milton, and good morning to our viewers. Well, what can I tell you? It rained right through the night into early this morning here in Ocho Rios, but there wasn't much wind activity in the town itself, so things are a bit calm right here. But once you head outside of Ocho Rios, especially from Salem going towards Discovery Bay and beyond, things are different. It's a very different picture. The winds out there are extremely strong, and while the rain isn't heavy, it's persistent and steady. Now the shift in the conditions on that section, or in that section of the parish, is no surprise given the track that Hurricane Melissa is expected to take. Now the system's outer bands are brushing the northern sections of St. Anne more forcefully, and so communities along that stretch of road definitely will be feeling stronger effects. Yesterday we visited Cave Valley, which is located close to the boundary of St. Anne and Manchester, and already they were feeling the effects of the outer bands of Hurricane Melissa, strong winds, persistent rains. So today we will be continuing to monitor Hurricane Melissa along the Salem to Discovery Bay section of the parish, where it is expected that flooding may occur, especially in Cave Valley.
Yeah, I update the title because we have 175 miles per hour. Shit is 185 miles per hour now.
It's in subsequent newscasts. It's back to you in studio.
Okay, Sandy Williams reporting live from Ocho Rios. Just want to give you some advice from the Jamaica Public Service. They said if your lights start to chip in and out, it's time to plug out those appliances. Flickering lights can lead to power surges and damage appliances. Unplug your sensitive stuff, computers, TVs, etc. If the flickering won't stop, safely turn off your main breaker. That's a message from the JPS, because I do know a lot of customers are experiencing flickering lights and the power going on and off. We're gonna look now at the live camera in the Kingston Harbour. Clearer this morning. Yesterday afternoon it had deteriorated pretty badly. We couldn't.
Alright, now we check for one camera, the same camera. Blood clean. Me tell you, the flat bridge should have covered up by morning, I see it there. Flat bridge is covered. That goes to show you the amount of rainfall we are going. Alright, we have a little London, Westmoreland. Camera down, shit. Halfway through. Wind is crazy. Then people out of do. Okay, let's see what other camera we have. Look on a flat bridge, there's no bridge. Devon's House, Kingston. A small breeze. Okay, look on the harbour. Harbour view. Water run like crazy. Crossroad. Crossroad kind of look like business as usual. Car and vehicle I walk. I want to school you with this. Watch out for all of your thief them too, you know.
Good evening. I'm Christine Johnson, and we begin here tonight.
Well, I'm Christine.
Out of electricity, they have backed now to about 30%. But as the deterioration happens with the hitting landfall, obviously we expect it to get worse. So areas such as Westmoreland, St. James, Hanover, St. Elizabeth are expected to lose full power in a matter of hours. However, as I said before, we are hopeful that we'll be able to do a quick assessment after and to get the necessary assets in to start the rebuilding of the grid.
Minister, do we have sufficient energy or fuel supply rather to sustain us during this weather event?
So we have Petrojam has 7 to 10 days worth of fuel and about 7 days worth of LPG. There is a disruption in terms of LNG supply to JPS and obviously CNG supply to JUTC as those plants have had to be decommissioned. But in terms of our fuel source here, we are okay, and I expect that we will be able to get in to replenish in short order.
And the outages that you had mentioned, Minister Vaz, those are strictly as a result of just down power lines, of just the infrastructure?
No, not down power lines. Obviously, the possibility of flooding, shutting down of some of the plants, and most importantly, lightning strikes, which are a big cause for issues with the grid. But so far, as you would see in Kingston and St. Andrew, which is the epicenter of any recovery, and the hub of commerce, it seems as if we are holding well on that, both with the telecos and the JPS. And obviously, we would want to make sure that is sustained as long as possible, especially for the recovery. I have a report from the airport's authority that hopefully we will be able to open to start receiving flights on Thursday after that assessment done tomorrow. Thanks to International Airport, obviously is going to have a problem with the level of hurricane that's going to pass over, so we have to wait to see what happens with that. But all in all, we are prepared. And as I said before, we will be in touch and keep the country advised every step of the way. We're actually going to do a press conference now early at 9:30 at Odpem so that we can all get home and stay safe for the next few hours until the hurricane passes over Jamaica.
We understand, Minister, that over a third of the numerous hundreds of thousands of customers from the JPSCO are currently without power. Has that number increased in any way?
That number would have decreased since this morning, based on the report that I got, based on the fact that they've been able to get back a portion of St.
What's the number?
I haven't got the numbers as yet, but as soon as I get them, they will be made public.
Let's talk about your constituents. How are they faring?
Not well, because obviously hilly and low-lying areas and hills, but thankfully, obviously, we are not as bad as the western end of the island. But obviously, infrastructure damage and personal damage to people's houses and livelihood is going to be a reality with the amount of rain that is expected for the entire island. I don't think any parish will be spared in terms of the magnitude of this catastrophic hurricane, but we are praying and hoping for those in the West, especially in terms of their safety and lives, as obviously when that hits landfall in a few hours, it's going to be a different story when we wake up tomorrow morning.
All right, so essentially though, Minister Vaz, I would suspect that anyone who is without power now may very well have to be without power throughout the duration of the passage of this hurricane.
Yes, as the weather deteriorates, there's obviously no possible way that GPS is going to be able to respond. As a matter of fact, I would expect that they would be not responding on the road. Maybe they can work from inside their stations, but anything that requires linesmen to go out or GPS staff, that would not be possible. But as I said before, we're trying our best and holding as long as possible.
Minister, what are some of the consequences we can expect without power, especially with water and all the other things that depend heavily on power?
Obviously, water and light is the two critical things during and after a hurricane. And we're working assiduously to make sure. As of right now, there's only 2 hospitals that are out of electricity, which is great. I think Black River and Mandeville. So we are holding as best as possible. And obviously, between generators and the good work of JPS in terms of the recovery, we'll try and get the essential services back up as quick as possible.
And the telecommunications networks are also dependent on the power as well, on the electricity.
Yes, we have some special measures that are being put in place as we speak. I signed some licenses this morning for additional spectrum and offering for both Flow and Digicel to give them even that much more flexibility in terms of the recovery efforts. So we are proactive and we're working, and as I said before, I expect both Digicel and Flow to perform well in the aftermath of the hurricane.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I know you've spoken about
yes.
Recovery efforts already. We have to start to think about that as well. Transport, obviously, one of the other ministries under your portfolio. In terms of mobilizing transport, public transport, especially in the case that we may need to do so quickly after the passage of this hurricane, what are you looking at?
We will definitely use JUTC across the island. We'll definitely use Montego Bay Metro, and we have commissioned the 60 rural school buses in all the parishes that they are operating to also assist in evacuation and recoveries.
Minister, before you go, there have been some critics on social media so far talking about this JPS statement regarding increased bills just out of the storm. Any expectations from you regarding that?
The only expectation I have is that nothing will be done without full consultation with the OUR and with my ministry in relation to, if that becomes a possibility, how that will be handled with taking into consideration the customers and, of course, the situation that the country is in terms of the recovery. So I don't want to discuss that at this point. It's just to say that if it does become a reality, it will be managed, and the government of Jamaica gives that assurance to the people of Jamaica.
All right, Minister, we're going to let you go because we know you have the press conference to come.
Keep safe. God bless Jamaica.
All right, thank you so much, Minister Darrell Vaz there, the Minister of Transport, Energy and Telecommunications. Giselle Mills, of course, has been doing a lot of work, has been doing a lot of coverage for us, and we're going to be hearing from her shortly, Nika.
Yes.
But very critical and very important conversation with Minister Vaz there, because, of course, the first thing everybody's going to worry about is now the power. Mm-hmm. And power has started to go out. You heard him say that in the West, power had already started to go out. Several people are without power, and that number is only going to go up further, obviously, because, you know, the JPS will not be able to respond to these power outages.
Not only that, to protect lives and to prevent fires and all those things, and because there are some areas that you may not necessarily see the broken power lines or whatever, you may not have that yet, but along the stretch, because, you know, I think they work along the grid work.
Right.
So how they operate, it would indicate that you may not have immediate disturbances around you, but
they
a
may
few
have to
meters
shut
down
the grid,
the road,
right. And
some
they might have to
people are
shut that grid off,
exposed, so
right.
they have to shut it down to preserve life and to take care
and
of
people
you.
understandably be a little bit miserable and flustered at that. That is not something that you really want to hear. I think I've heard that my house has already lost power. I'm not even.
Really?
I'm just in St. Andrew, right? But yeah, it's gonna be a little bit frustrating. But you know, that's why we talk about the preparation beforehand.
Safety.
And
Safety is first.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to TV, J2.
And that's to be expected, as we showed you just now.
All right, let's see some other up-to-date video.
Good evening from Kingston.
Hurricane. Okay, let's see what we have going live. Okay, that's right. Ooh. Sea warring. Okay, what else we have here? All right, Melissa. Like, nobody now go to do a figure report nothing.
Of that stream are getting through on JS Photography on YouTube.
That's from the 26th, nigga. This is 28.
And that's a key question. Look, think of a hurricane as a giant, angry vacuum cleaner in the sky. The lower that pressure number, the millibars, the stronger the suck. A really low number.
Hurricane Melissa is making its way to Jamaica tonight.
You know, let me go for the last hour. Up to the time in here. Writers have a good feed. Okay, everybody on their motherland.
Nothing. There's no way to possibly get out. And so that is the part that makes it kind of hard, because you can hear the wind, but in the room, the ballroom that we're in, we can't hear anything. Yeah. And so that's why they're just going to update us and our phones, as long as we have service, which it actually now has been starting to cut out a little bit. So I'm in this space, that's why we're not moving, but it's starting to cut out a little bit. We're just like literally we're waiting.
Jamaica, we are here again for another press briefing. I think this is number 8.
All right, let's see what TVJ are going with the press
Thompson, I need to acknowledge some others who are in the room. I want to acknowledge the head of ODPEM, Mr. Richard Thompson, who is here, and also the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, Marsha Henry Martin, and they've all been here overnight. I also want to acknowledge the members of the media who are here. They have been here consistently with us. We want to thank them. They're here sleeping on cots. That's how committed they are to getting the news and the information to you, and I'm very grateful to them and thank them. I know it's difficult being away from your families, but know that we are grateful to you. Another person that I need to thank are the caterers. There are a lot of people here in the emergency center and they need to be fed. And I want to thank the mothers team that's working to provide food. They bring breakfast, lunch, and they try to bring dinner too. And everybody who is in the emergency center is fed. We cannot do this without them. So I just wanted to acknowledge them also. So let's get started with the man of the moment, Evan Thompson. Families, but know that we are grateful to you. Another caterers. There are a lot of people here in the emergency center and they need to be fed. And I want to thank the mothers team that's working.
Well, I'll go on TVJ with this.
Thank you very much, Minister. And the lady of the moment is Hurricane Melissa. And we'll be hearing a lot about Hurricane Melissa today because there has been no significant change in terms of the magnitude of this system, the strength of its winds. Our satellite imagery will just give you a good picture of what is really happening out there over the waters and even over the land, because Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane, continues to barrel its way. Well, not barrel its way because it's still moving pretty slowly, but moving toward the southwestern coastline of Jamaica. We are starting to experience quite a few of the impacts of this system because we have been experiencing rainfall over much of the island, especially in the west and the south of the country. We've been having some periods of heavy rainfall, mostly moderate rainfall. There have also been gusts of wind and some sustained strong winds over sections of the island. The gusts, of course, going well into tropical storm force as we went through the night last night and as we have gone through this morning so far. We recognize that the system has not yet made landfall. The center is still some distance away from the coastline, just about 70 to 75 kilometers from the southwestern coastline, and it is still moving toward the northeast. So it is moving closer and closer to the coastline of Jamaica. I mentioned that it has been moving slowly, but it has been moving a little bit faster than it was previously because it's now moving at 11 kilometers per hour. That's just about 7 miles per hour. And it is expected to make that turn to be more in a direction, moving in a direction toward the northeast, which is a slight shift toward the east, more so than it is going at this time. So it will continue to move toward the island, making its entry on the southwestern coastline. We do expect, let me move this slide forward a little bit so you can see and get an idea of where we're expecting it to move. First, let me just point to those circles that you're seeing on the image. Where the center is located, the inner, I refer to it as the inner core, which is that orange area that's surrounding it. And then you have the outer band, you know, of the greens that extend across the country, which is what most of us have been experiencing thus far. But the inner core that we speak of is that orange area that we expect to be making some impact on the island, and that's where the stronger winds are concentrated. Also, the heavier rainfall is in that general area. We did say that the system is a Category 5 hurricane at this time, and when it makes landfall, it is expected to still be a Category 5 hurricane. That means it will cause catastrophic damage, life-threatening damage. There is very little that can stop a Category 5 hurricane. And regardless of the where you are in the parish of Westmoreland or St. Elizabeth, if you are under the impact of those Category 5 hurricane force winds, you will be having significant difficulty even with infrastructure that's in the area. So ensure that you are in the strongest area that you can. The recommendation from the Hurricane Center is that you would have as many walls between yourself and the outside as you can, because it is important to reinforce yourself and to ensure that you are not left vulnerable to this system. We do expect that it will gradually be reduced in strength as it moves over the island. It will fall to a Category 4 maybe, and then Category.
Fucking difference it make you say Category 4 rip up Grenada?
In the meantime, when it makes landfall, which is expected, as you can see in this image here, to be somewhere near parity in western St. Elizabeth, that's somewhat to the east of Black River. So it will most likely make landfall in the western part of St. Elizabeth rather than in the eastern part of Westmoreland. And then it will continue moving toward the northeast. That is the direction of movement that is expected. It will continue over the northern part of St. Elizabeth and then move into southern Trelawney. And the exit is expected to be somewhere in Trelawney rather than in St. Anne. It would be most likely in the eastern end of Trelawney rather than St. Anne, where it makes its exit from the island of Jamaica. Here we see the area, this area of orange shows the outer bands of the system, where we are expecting to be experiencing impacts. Heavy rainfall right across the length and breadth of Jamaica, also strong winds across the island. The amounts of rainfall that we expect, we see here again, we indicated that we would have between 20 and 30 inches or 500 to 750 millimeters of rainfall affecting sections of the island. The area that is expected to be impacted mostly has been narrowed a little bit on the map. So you'll see that Jamaica's central parishes are most at risk and extending into the west of the island as well. And then some slightly lower figures are expected for the rest of the island, but still significant rainfall. 12 to 16 inches, 300 to 400 millimeters is nothing to scoff at. It's still a lot of rainfall, still expected to produce significant flooding. You might be saying that this system doesn't seem to be packing much of a punch because what you've been experiencing outside doesn't seem to be worthy of all the hurrah that we're creating about the system. But the truth is, it is still some distance away from the coast, expected to move closer and then move across the island, and that means that the impacts are going to be significantly greater than you've already been experiencing. Flooding is expected, landslides are expected, storm surge is expected, and of course those strong winds we will not be able to escape, especially if you're in the path of this system and in the path close to the eye of the system. The rest of the island, I mentioned the Category 5 hurricane force winds that will be experienced over parts of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland going into Trelawney, but we are expecting tropical storm force winds over the rest of the country. And so we all should be experiencing or looking out for the experience of tropical storm winds right across the island. Here we see on our picture some of the areas that are expected to be mostly inundated from storm surge that is also expected to come onshore. And this would be in those bays and inlets in the area of Black River. We expect significant storm surge, although the center is now expected to be somewhat of Black River, so this might have to be updated slightly, but Black River will also experience storm surge. Storm surge could get as high as 13 feet. That's high. 13 feet is a couple of stories high. And so you need to be very much prepared for that kind of activity if you're in any of those bays or inlets along the coast of St. Elizabeth in particular, and even going into Clarendon. So those traditional areas of storm surge impact, like Portland Cottage, Rocky Point, those are areas that, because of the geography, we are expecting still to to experience some amount of storm surge in those areas, although probably not as significant as we would have in St. Elizabeth along the coast. So anywhere, even along the coast of Manchester, parts of Alligator Pond and, Treasure Beach area should also be looking out for that kind of activity, and going eastward as far as parts of St. Catherine. And that is basically the presentation at this time. I'm sure you'll have some questions that will bring out some more information later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evan. You heard it. It is strengthening and it is coming to Jamaica. I know we've been praying for it not to hit, but it is going to hit us. So we have to heed everything that Evan has just said. I'm going to ask if there are any questions for Evan before we go on to the others. Any member of the media? Okay, please go ahead. Do we have a mic, or you're just going to speak very loudly and I'll repeat it?
Sure. Good morning.
I think the mic is coming.
Good morning. Okay. Mike.
You can just speak and I'll repeat the question.
So, good morning, following on Jamaica Mission Service. Has the window now officially closed for Jamaicans to make preparations, especially on the western side of the country, considering the distance of the system from the coast?
Okay, so the question was, has the window now closed for those who need to make preparations, especially on the western side of the island?
We're very close. Thanks for the question, JIS. We are very close to the closing of that window. I mean, I would not actually say it's entirely closed, because there are a couple things that you might be able to do right outside your doors that could reinforce your structures. If that is a possibility, when we have some level of calm, I have been hearing from persons in St. Elizabeth, in Manchester, who have indicated that they are getting quite some heavy rainfall and some strong winds, but there are usually some lulls, some periods of semi-calm that they can probably do something quickly on the outside and get back inside. So we would like to ask everyone to ensure that you keep yourself safe. Exercise extreme caution if you have to do anything immediately outside. But of course, as the system moves any closer, we will start to experience the eye wall of the system moving onshore, and then the eye will make its impact. And we do expect that that will occur by midday today. So during the latter part of this morning, after 11 o'clock, I would say let's not take any chances on the outside. Let's make sure that we are on the inside, so as this system makes its way here, we're not destroyed ourselves. Apart from the structures outside, we have to make sure that we save our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. We're going to now move to Minister Yaad Vibez, who is our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transportation.
Hurry up on the phone and put no blood.
Morning, Jamaica. Prayers up. Let's start with JPS, which I know is on everybody's mind. The electricity grid has already been impacted by hurricane conditions, which have caused several power outages across the island. Several generation units, critical high voltage substations, transmission and distribution lines across the island have been forced out of service by the hurricane force winds and lightning. As a result, approximately 240,000 or 35% of JPS customers are without power. That's out of a possible 700,000. Mainly in the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Manchester, St. James, and Hanover. The status generation, there is adequate firm generation online to serve our customers. No renewables are available. As I said before, customers impacted. More than 75% of the customers in St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Hanover, and St. James are affected without electricity. The least impacted parishes with less than 10% of customers impacted: St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine. The majority of hospitals continue to be supplied with JPS power, except those in Manchester and St. Elizabeth, such as Black River, Mandeville and Percy Junior Hospital. But I can confirm that they are operating on standby power, generator power. There is no plan at this point to shut down the grid. JPS crews continue to respond and restore critical facilities and customers where it is safe to do so. In the meantime, JPS is reminding customers to stay safe and take precautions to protect life and property. And most importantly, stay tuned to official channels of information, which include government and JPS for further updates. As it relates to our telcos, I'll start with Digicel. 26% of mobile network is offline, predominantly due to the widespread loss of power. There's a further 209 sites running on generators and 9 on batteries. For fiber to home customers, we are seeing 20% customers offline due to no power in their homes. As we see the most impacted areas, we will work with our crews to focus on those areas first. Even if commercial power is still to be restored, we will keep generators fueled and gas the sites back to keep them up and running. They're also confirming that also in aid in recovery, we are working with the SMA to increase our spectrum bandwidth channels, as we know from our experience from Hurricane Beryl that the mobile infrastructure will be recovered much quicker than the fixed. So just to indicate that I, this morning at 3 o'clock, signed licenses for additional spectrum for Flow, Liberty Caribbean, and I'm awaiting Digicel to give them the same. For Flow, I'm happy to say that Liberty Caribbean operators of Flow Jamaica and Liberty Business is committed to playing its part for Jamaica to recover quickly from the inevitable damage following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. Again, with the spectrum that they have received, they will be bringing a new innovation, mobile connectivity via satellite, and facilitates SMS and text messages to areas affected in the aftermath of the storm. So this partnership promises to seamlessly enable 4G LTE mobile customers to send texts to their family and friends, even when the local network services may be interrupted. So that's huge, very huge. And this collaboration with Starlink reflects a deep commitment to the Caribbean and protecting Jamaica.
All right, Elon
So
Musk.
we look forward for that. And we also look forward for Digicel to do the same, which will give us a lot more ability to communicate and to recover as quickly as possible. This one is the big important one now, and that is the airports. Based on my consultations with PACAL and the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority about the timeline for the Norman Manley International Airport to accommodate emergency relief flights after the passage of Hurricane Melissa, the assumption is that the system will leave Jamaica by the end of today, Tuesday, October 28th, and that the impact on the Norman Manley International Airport is not extensive. Both PACAL and JCA will use tomorrow, October 29th, to inspect and clean up the facility and restore the test equipment that have been decommissioned to accommodate flights. These emergency relief flights could therefore be accommodated as early as Thursday, October 30th, 2025. Again, we are not sure what's going to happen with Montego Bay, who will face at least a lower category, possibly category 3. So we aren't able to say anything on Sangster, but we know that it could have potential disabling impact for that airport. The good news is that the Ian Fleming International Airport is being considered as a part of contingency planning. So it means that we could get into Ian Fleming with certain types of aircrafts, and that will help us significantly based on the distance between Ian Fleming and Montego Bay. Petrojam, following another meeting this morning of the refinery, Petrojam is turning its attention to deepening participation in the broader national multi-agency response. Fuel security plays a key role, as we know, and Petrojam is assuring that all 3 international airports, in addition to all airdromes, are at 75 to 80% capacity for aviation fuel. This will enable aircraft movement to resume immediately. In addition, Petrojam has 2 to 3 weeks supply of aviation fuel at its Kingston and Montego Bay storage facilities. So in accordance with international standards, we will follow strict safe storage and rigorous testing prior to reopening. Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority, the microwave system is in general is operational, with the exception of the links between Winchester headquarters and Catherine Peak, which is currently offline. All remote sites are operating on generator power. So this means that we will be able to accommodate relief flights, which the requests are coming in fast and furious. And as I said before, we spoke about Airports Authority. Finally, I'll just give an update on JUTC. And that was up to 9 o'clock last night, reporting 361 persons that were taken to shelters in several parishes. All road operations for JUTC ceased last night, with the exception of transport assistance being provided to essential services staff, such as hospital workers. JUTC's emergency standby teams remain in place at all depots. We will have some kind of disruption to some of the buses, because those buses that use CNG will not be able to be fueled immediately due to the fact that the plant has been decommissioned. But let me close by saying, once again, that government, as you have heard and will hear from Minister Mackenzie, we are dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's to make sure that we facilitate all that is required for the response that is going to come in relation to the rebuilding phase after this catastrophic hurricane. So I want to just say to you, those of you who are still not taking it serious, you have but a few hours. And as I said before, based on what Evan said, the low-lying areas are going to be badly affected. Seek to go to higher ground and protect yourself and be smart. Again, commit to be here right through. And of course, if we work together, we will get through this once again. God bless Jamaica and keep safe.
Thank you very much, Minister Vaz. As you hear, we have not stopped working. He's not going to stop working to ensure that we have electricity and that we have telecom service. Right before this press briefing started, I heard him on the phone with JPS's head, and they were talking through how they were going to be making sure that we have electricity up in areas that aren't as badly affected, and then that we can recover even more quickly. He has not stopped working for us, and we have to obviously thank Starlink for that support that they're giving to our telecoms providers in Jamaica to ensure that even if our systems locally go down, that we will still be able to communicate internally and externally with the rest of the world. Also want to welcome the members of the media who are joining us from overseas. I know that the feed is going out also. We say good morning to you and good morning to all of your viewers out there too. Next up, we have Minister Desmond McKenzie, who is not just our Minister of Local Government and Community Development. He is the one that's coordinating the entire disaster response, wearing his hat as the Deputy Chair of our National Disaster Risk Council. The Chair is the Prime Minister, who is very much behind the scenes coordinating all of this and calling all of us for updates. And so this morning you will hear directly from Minister McKenzie his updates on the entire disaster management framework.
Thank you, Minister Dixon. Again, let me commend you on the sterling job that you've been doing in presiding over these very important press briefing. Minister Vaz, Evan Thompson, my PS, Director General Acting, other support staff, and I want to acknowledge the team. The Jamaica Fire Brigade and the GADF was very active last night, responding to a number of calls to assist residents in sections of the corporate area. I want to, first of all, give an update on the state of shelters. Again, I want to repeat that all of the 800 and odd shelters are open. The numbers that I have presently speak to, of the 800 shelters, 382 shelters are occupied so far, with a total of persons within these shelters of almost 6,000 persons. Just to give you a rundown of the numbers in Kingston and St. Andrew, there are 45 shelters which are open with 581 persons. In Clarendon, 39 shelters with a accommodation of over 865 in Clarendon. Westmoreland, 33 shelters open with over 500 persons. St. Mary, 27 shelters with over 500 persons. St. Catherine, 27 shelters, 394 persons. Portmore, 8 shelters, 74 persons. St. Thomas, 18 shelters, 609 persons. Manchester, 23, 135. St. Anne, I see here 18 shelters open, but 0. There seems to be no one in any shelters in St. Anne. We'll check on those numbers. And over 19 shelters are open with over 261 persons. St. James, 30 shelters, 209 persons. Trelawney, 10 shelters, 313. Portland, 59 shelters, 541. St. Elizabeth, 26 shelters, 289. Now, St. Elizabeth is of concern because I am understanding that we are getting calls before we came on here of persons in St. Elizabeth asking for transportation to be sent into various communities to transport persons out of those areas. As Minister Vaz have said, it is going to be difficult. I have given instructions to the RPM director and to the team to advise the disaster coordinators and the members of parliament and the mayors wherever transportation is needed and they can get those transportation, they should do everything that is possible to provide the transportation to take the people out. But the system that we have had, as Minister Vaz said, those systems have been put on hold now because of the closeness of the system. So I would urge persons who can move to do so, and the mayors and the CEOs and the councillors and the members of parliament to do everything that is possible to assist those persons in moving. The impact of Melissa is being felt. Evan gave full details. We are having reports of widespread impact across several parishes, which are seeing increased number of land slippage, flooding, fire, storm surge, and power outage. Roads in St. Thomas, Portland, and St. Catherine were blocked by fallen trees, poles, landslides, and most of these
people are really
have been
stubborn.
clear. And I want to make the point that the team that are on the road, the roving teams that have been pre-positioned, have been responding. Once the report is sent to the team, they are out there actually doing the work. So if you are in an area where there is blockage and fallen trees, you can send us the information, and once that is possible, we will send the team out. Minister Vaz, I see a report here, fire on GPS pole lines in certain sections. Storm surge affect Whole Harbour Bay and other such communities. Caribbean Terrace is experiencing flooding, and I want to say that that is a community that I think we have to pay more attention to, because many years ago, when I was mayor, a section of Caribbean Terrace was devastated, and we are now seeing again, based on the information that is coming, and I'm going to ask the team to do some more checking to see the extent of what is taking place in Caribbean Terrace. We are experiencing, as I said before, land slippage in many communities in Portland, St. Thomas, St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas, and many other communities are experiencing those challenges as I speak at this time. This is the last briefing that we'll be able to give as update.
What do you mean by?
But I will spend 2 minutes. Again, God has been merciful, because we've been talking about Melissa coming for almost a week.
And people still not ready yet.
And still today, when we are expecting Melissa, there are still, as Evan have said, a small window of opportunity. Let us use it, and use it wisely. Let us respond. I hope by within the next hour, when I get an update, I will see more persons in shelters, and we will see more people responding. Jamaica, this is not the time to be brave. I've been saying for 1 week, don't bet against Melissa. It is a bet we can't win. I want to close because the reports is short, and we want persons to go to do what they can do for themselves, their families. And I want to thank all of you who have left your homes and have been spending time here, camping out, members of the media. Last night I walked and I interacted with them before I went to bed in my little corner. And, you know, it was commendable to see the media and other support staff leaving their families and things. And this is a commitment that we are making for the betterment of Jamaica. Already we have started, as I said from yesterday, to look at how we're going to map our recovery. We have to start to look at that. We can't wait until Melissa has come to start to say how we are going to prepare ourselves for the recovery. We have started to do that in the meetings that we have been having. But I want to thank the team. And I know that Jamaicans are grateful. And we are all praying for the best outcome. So as I said before, whatever windows are available, I am asking those, especially in St. Elizabeth and those areas, who can move to do so at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Mackenzie. I just wanted to note, given that we have a lot of our members of the diaspora on, you've been asking a lot about how you can support Jamaica. Just noting that I'm very, very pleased this morning to announce the launch of our Support Jamaica website. It is supportjamaica.gov.jm. We've already been made aware of some nefarious individuals trying to collect money on behalf of Jamaica. We remind you that this will be the official site. If it doesn't have .gov.jm, it is not legitimate. It's not an official government of Jamaica site. And so it will be supportjamaica.gov.jm, and it will be our online platform developed by the government of Jamaica to mobilize support, to channel relief and coordinate recovery efforts in the wake of Hurricane Melissa. In it, you're going to have a donate now page where you can donate using your credit or debit cards, and you will also be able to give pledges. You also have all the information on ODPEM's bank accounts. If you want to do a bank transfer, you can do so there. A new innovation on that site is that you will be able to give updates on emergencies. So if there's an issue that you see in your area, you want to upload a picture, maybe there is flooding, maybe there is a town that has been cut off, you can actually notify us through that website also. It also has an interactive shelter locator for those who may need it. Even if you have to help someone to find a shelter, please use it. It will give you all the shelters that are near you. You can actually put in what parish you're in or what area you're in, and you can geolocate.
Fixing the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. All right. We had a quick power outage, but we are back up here. Just noting again that you can find shelters. They are on that site, supportjamaica.gov.jm. And so it is all about mobilizing resources. So it's a resource for those locally and also for those in the diaspora and anywhere in the world that wants to give support to Jamaica. Again, the website is supportjamaica.gov.jm, and it was created overnight, updated in basically a day. The developers spent a day working on it, and we want to thank them. And it was donated to us by Amber Group in consultation with other members of the team and other private sector partners. We are going to be opening up now for questions from the media. I know I already have one question that I need to treat with, which has to do with tourists. How many tourists are here on the island? The number I have from the Ministry of Tourism is 25,000. They issued a press release yesterday, and they noted that they are coordinating with all of the hotels. There's no need to worry. The Ministry of Tourism has its center that is in constant communication with all of the hotels, has been providing support, and so we are keeping those tourists as safe as we possibly can. And so I open up for questions. Zara, you're first.
Good morning, everybody. Zara Burton representing Reuters today. I would like to know, please, I realize that it is still early to talk about this, but I'm just curious if it is that, there could be any kind of comment about, search and rescue preparation. If there could be any kind of comment about if it is that you are in this hurricane and your shelter is compromised. Is there any advice on, I don't know if ODPEM can give any advice on safe rooms to go to, just any practical advice to residents who may be in this hurricane and in very perilous situations during and post?
Thank you for that question, and we're going to get you an answer.
Let me say that the Jamaica Defense Force and the Jamaica Constabulary Force are members of the National Disaster Committee, and they sit in the command center during the operation. So any request that comes in for search and rescue, will be undertaken by the Jamaica Defence Force along with the Jamaica Fire Brigade, because they are a part of the national response team and they are present, and we have equipments that are pre-positioned prior to the passage of Melissa that will be able to respond. So in a nutshell, yes, we are in a position to respond, and once the request comes in, the team will be ready to go. We have boats, helicopters, you name it. The government has equipped the Jamaica Defence Force, especially with a number of helicopters. The Jamaica Fire Brigade have a number of boats that can be used on land and can be used at sea for rescue operation and search operation.
What can you spell on? Never know that.
Minister, I think there were some questions around tips, I think, between you and Mr. Thompson in terms of tips for persons. I know you're an expert in this area.
Yeah.
Come on,
thank you,
here.
Minister. Very difficult in terms of tips for Category 5, but nonetheless, I think one of the things that we have to do is to ensure that, as was said before, that we are doing most of the preparation going in. In terms of tips, we have always said that person should try as best as possible to bring a lot of stuff already outside, inside. We don't want a lot of stuff that you have loose stuff outside, especially Minister spoke it about construction sites. A lot of those things can be used as missile in the system, so you try to bring a lot of those in as best as possible. Try to secure your animals. If you're inside, you stay in between walls that are not close to your outer walls in terms of your structures, because if your structure is not sound enough, those will go. A little bit better, I think, for persons who have multi-story facility. If your roof goes, you can go on the lower part of your building. Search and rescue component, the minister said it before. The teams are out there, but what we are saying in terms of tips as well, which was said before, and I will enforce it again, get into the shelters, because in terms of search and rescue, we can't do search and rescue in the heights of a system. Persons need to get away from the coastline, away from low-lying areas that are prone to flooding, and ensure that you are in safe, elevated areas to ensure that you are safe from all the dangers of coastal waters and riverine waters. And as best as possible, ensure that on the inside of your property, you're staying in between double walls. So if your outer wall goes, you're a little bit protected, and stay downstairs if you have a multi-story facility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you, Minister Mackenzie. I think we're going to go to Nationwide News now.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Mahir Stewart, Nationwide News. Question for Minister Vaz. You oversee the energy, telecoms, and transport portfolio. Have you been receiving any reports of vandalism in any of those three sectors?
Thank God, nothing so far, and I hope it remains that way. Nothing so far.
All right, Television Jamaica.
Yes, Minister Vaz, Andrea Chisholm from TVJ. Quickly checking on the JUTC buses. I think you mentioned that the CNG plant has been decommissioned. So I'm thinking that 60 or so about of the 93 buses that came in operate on CNG. So do you have enough CNG in place to operate those buses for a while, or is it that they're totally out of use for now?
Yes. Prior to the hurricane and in preparation for the hurricane, one of the requirements was for additional storage to be on location in case deliveries are not able, because the deliveries are done by road. So we took that into consideration. So I'm hoping that the the plant will be able to be recommissioned in short order, but there may be, depending on the level of damage, some disruption in terms of the full fleet, but we will have enough to do what we need to do.
Nationwide, once again, question to Evan Thompson. We know the effects that we're expecting in terms of the hurricane force winds and the tropical storm force winds on the outer side of Melissa, but in terms of the eye, because that's obviously going to pass through the country as well, what kind of conditions can persons expect during the eye of the hurricane? I know things are kind of calm now in certain areas. Are those persons within the eye supposed to expect similar conditions?
Thanks. That's a very good question, Mahiri. It's important for us to understand what happens when the eye is expected to move across your area. First of all, the eye itself is a calm area in the center of the storm. So as that moves over, it will appear as if it's all done. It will be a clearing. There will be very little cloud cover. There will be very little wind. And so it will feel as though the storm has passed. And it's a good feeling. And so a number of persons would want to take the opportunity to get some quick repairs done, especially since the eye extends a few miles actually in diameter. So, you know, it would take a little while to pass over you, and you could have some time of break. But before the eye gets to you, you would have passed through one of the most intense parts of this hurricane. It means that you will experience wind speeds that are approaching 300 kilometers per hour. This is round about 185 miles per hour. That's what the system is packing as a Category 5 hurricane. And much of that will be within the eye wall. In that eye wall, which is that area that surrounds the eye, you will have that most intense wind speeds, but also the most torrential downpours of rainfall. So that area will pass from the coast right across as the eye moves. Of course, that is the protective area for the eye that moves along with it, all the way from the southwest of Jamaica to the north central part of the island. So you will experience those intense conditions before the calm, and then after that calm, you experience it once again, unfortunately, and the winds will be from the opposite direction. So if it was coming to you from the east, it will now come to you from the west after the eye. If it was from the north, it will come from the south after the eye passes. It's always from the opposite direction after the eye passes, and you have to prepare yourself for that.
Morning. All right, so my question has to do with lightning strikes, because in one of the models that you showed us, I believe it was yesterday, we saw quite a few areas of thunderstorms. So I'm not certain what you can tell Jamaica now in terms of preparing or protecting ourselves from the possibility of being struck by lightning. And what do we look out for ahead of it? What are the signs?
Yes, lightning frequently occurs during the thunderstorms. Of course, it does occur during thunderstorms, and thunderstorms will be part of that intense area of the shower activity. We don't expect anyone to be outside, really. So that should, of course, protect you from the lightning strikes to a large extent. Of course, there will be some impact. It will affect electricity supply. It could also be the cause of fires. And so it's important that that is also monitored. I'm sure the fire brigade is alert to that, that there could be fires that are generated because of the lightning strike. So that is one of those hazards that actually accompanies hurricanes as well. We don't talk much about tornadoes either, but actually we do have small tornadoes that develop in hurricanes, and that is something that people need to also be aware of. Whenever hurricanes move over, generally you have those smaller scale cyclonic events that are tornadic. Well, tornadoes develop within these systems, and that could also be a source of danger for residents as the system passes over. They don't last very long for our area, but they are a real possibility. Not just a possibility, they actually occur and have occurred in Jamaica in the past.
Possible for particular parishes more so than others, considering where this system is projected to travel?
I believe in most cases when you have those events, it would be in the lower lands, in the flatter lands, and not so much in the hilly terrain. However, we should be prepared. I mean, in the larger scale of things, we're dealing with a hurricane with huge winds, massive winds. But at the same time, you could have the resultant effect of additional with the smaller scale events taking place within it.
Thank you.
Another quick question to Mr. Mackenzie. You were clear, Mr. Thompson. Thank you. Very quickly, Minister, you mentioned that the JDF and JCF were responding to calls in the corporate area. Just trying to get some details on that. Is it that persons were now evacuating or any flooding or anything?
No, not anything major. Just assistance that was required of them, and they have responded as they would normally do. Because remember now, the command center carries every critical area of government that forms a part of our disaster response mechanism. So once the information is fed into the command center, we will go out to see what is required in terms of why a request was made. And that was why the team was out. And we have roving teams on the road that is driving around. So when they pick up anything on the road, they will act, and they will call in and give central the information, and we will log those information, because we use the information after to see what took place and how best to address and to see how we can prevent. Yes.
And question from Nationwide: Have you been updated in terms of the readiness and the preparation for places such as prisons, children's homes, and homes for old persons?
Well, as I said before, the security forces sit on the National Committee. So everything security-wise, and we don't discuss the security aspects of the prisons and the operations of the police and the military, because that is confined. And you know why that has to be confined. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security, we work with all the ministries are involved. So children homes and the infirmaries and everything is taken care of in the general scheme of things and planning. And inspections are done to these facilities to ensure that they are up to standard.
Ask you one more question. Could you just comment on why it is that at first we were facing a multi-day event, and now you're saying by this evening it will go? Could you just at least address that little thing?
All right, we're going to have to, this has to be the last question, because we do have to get the teams who need to get home safely. And so this is the last question. And I think you had answered it, Evan, before, but come.
Yes, this event has been multiple days that we've been experiencing it. This passing of the passage of the eye across the island will not be a full day. However, the entire event, we've been experiencing this for over a week, and this is part of the system that has been impacting us. It has been for a few days already, and will continue for another few days, because after the eye passes, we will have another maybe 2 days before we actually see a clearing. All right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So we are at the end of this press conference, just reminding everyone that if you want to support, we have international media that's streaming this live. If you want to support Jamaica, please go to supportjamaica.gov.jm. We're already receiving reports of flooding in St. Elizabeth. So all of you who are on the path that Evan has given us, please make sure you are getting to safety. It is becoming late to get to safety. The entire country is going to be affected. But as we said yesterday, we know we will get through this. Evan has said that this cloud and this wind and this rain will last for a couple days. But after that, we will rise again as a resilient Jamaican people. And so as we leave today, we continue to pray for this beautiful country, pray for those who are in the path of Hurricane Melissa, that God will guide them and God will keep them safe. Thank you all, and God bless Jamaica, land we love.
Okay. Alright, we was TVJ. Okay, let's see what area do. Is area live? Or it's just a premiere? Okay, it's a premiere.
Beach live cam happening right now, 9 a.m. Jamaica time, 9 a.m. There it is. This is an update from Kingston, Jamaica. I'm currently located here. We keep having power outages.
Okay, power outages in Kingston.
Black.
All right. God damn, where is this? Shit is real, people.
Whew. Folks, so this literally is tied for the worst, strongest landfall hurricane ever as far as landfall. Cat 5. It is in the Black River area right now.
Black River and another reminder, if if you're watching this, or if you ever find yourself in a hurricane in the future of this magnitude, when the eye hits, it's not time to go outside. It's going to happen again. What just happened is going to happen again on the other side of the hurricane. Even though it seems like it's over, it's not. And I still cannot believe how perfectly structured the storm is, even as the actual center of the eye is going over land now, or not the actual.
All these different categories, like category 5 in a place like Jamaica. All these different categories, like category 5.
Hurricane, which has finally started to make a jog toward.
Hurricane Melissa is making.
All right, let's see if anything in the last hour.
And she said her.
Okay, writer's camera get knocked out.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Kennedy Miller. Your CBS 21 Morning Minute starts now. We're talking all things weather this morning. We know it's a big day for Hurricane Melissa. So, Ed, what do you got on that?
Yeah, so Hurricane Melissa, a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane, is bearing down on the southwestern portion of Jamaica and is going to be making landfall early this morning. Yasmin's been finding out some stuff about what's been going on the island.
Yeah, Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he's praying for Jamaica, saying that the winds could surge up to 175 miles per hour. And he's very concerned. He doesn't believe that the country's infrastructure can withstand the possible damage that can come from Hurricane Melissa.
In terms of our press briefings, as always, we believe that it is important.
Now on a Tuesday morning, and if it's Tuesday during hurricane.
All right, let's see where go on other network.
Hi, if you've put one or more of these nice little effects filters on your video clips in DaVinci Resolve and you regret doing so, how do you remove them? A right click sounds like the way to go, but it is unfortunately not. Instead, if you select the clip in question and then look up in the far right corner, there is
Yeah. All right, let's see what going on elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm zooming into it right now. Quarter mile away. That's a quarter mile. That is why we're not going to be able to move because.
Oh, this is the hurricane plane.
So Hurricane Melissa, then I don't know what to expect with this.
Yeah, I hear you chatting. Hold on, hold on.
What I spent on drink about 100,000, $500,000 just on rap. I'm
Dumbass music. Alright, fuck this.
In terms of our press briefing.
Alright, TVJ people, come on over.
Jordan, that Mr. Evan Thompson there from the Met Office is raising that point again, something we've been stressing, but many Jamaicans still have this belief that if the eye is the severe part, yes and no, based on what he just said. And also, I believe that in that song, Lovindair's popular Gilbert song, when he said, back foot Gilbert, turn back or something like that, it really was about the eye. And you can look at the monitor or you can look at your screen and you'll be seeing the eye of the storm. You see that beautiful, crisp, clear sky and then that wall of puffy clouds? Yes, that's the eye wall. And that's the danger because that's the section that Evan is saying is packing wind speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, over 185 miles.
Those will be able to sustain the force of winds. This is a of other notes too to make as we watch it. The hurricane hunters with the Air Force, they were heading into the wall, the eye wall. They encountered heavy turbulence and they've had to go back to Curacao. It actually happened yesterday with NOAA's P3.
Right.
Their flight had to go back to Lakeland. It's just standard safety procedures. Not that there was damage on the plane. But this storm has been strengthening up until landfall.
Yeah, their quote was, they experienced forces stronger than normal due to turbulence. That was the one that just went through. It's like 185 mile per hour winds you measured out there in the eye wall. Yeah, I would say you're going to get some bounced around effect.
And the crazy thing is they fly into all the storms.
I know.
You know? And they have flown in previously into Category 5 hurricanes. But the turbulence is exceptional when you look at how this thing has been able to grow and how the pressure is so remarkably low. 892 millibars, that live shot.
Looking at the picture, look at the wires dancing right there. I mean, the palm trees are just bending pretty quickly right here. Poles are still up, though, at least right there.
Yeah.
You're 15 miles away from the real inner core of the storm itself, the steeper. But once that goes over, which it looks like we'll probably use the picture.
Actually, and we could switch on to my Max, and we can oscillate between the two because we've labeled where Treasure Beach is and where the eye wall actually has been trying to move ashore. It's been riding essentially to the north-northwest, making that north-northeast turn, but it's the eastern eye wall that we're seeing with Treasure Beach. The eye itself, though, as we're looking at it from space, remains symmetric, Bob. I mean, we've not seen this eye wall at all get degraded. If anything, Brian had mentioned how it's kind of expanding just a little bit, but, you know, just a couple of miles here.
But the pressure's been falling. I mean, when you showed the pressure at 892 a couple of hours ago, it was the entire newsroom was like, oh, and it's the third strongest, most intense hurricane that we've seen in the Atlantic since we've been keeping records.
It's hard to fathom.
Third strongest.
And if we were to just look at storms from a wind perspective, Brian brought it up, Hurricane Dorian achieved those winds of 185 miles an hour. The pressure wasn't as low, but yeah, it's now in the list of memorable and unforgettable hurricanes. So Treasure Beach, that's where that live cam is.
Right.
We're looking at this from a visible satellite perspective. It almost looks like this thing is drifting north.
Right,
It might continue. It's not great news for Treasure Beach, but when we look at where maybe White House, Jamaica, Savannah, Lamar, some of these smaller fishing villages are going to have to pay close attention to it. I mean,
that's going right where it is.
Agriculture capital of the country.
It's going to go right over them. They're going to get the eye wall. They're going to get the eye itself, and then the backside of the eye wall as it pulls up from the south up to the north. The only saving grace is not that much. It's that the forward progression has picked up speed just a bit.
Yeah.
Remember before yesterday, it was moving at 3 miles per hour. Earlier this morning, it was moving at about 5 miles per hour. Right now, it's moving to the north-northeast at 9 miles per hour. So it has picked up a little bit of speed, and that's anticipated as we get that trough coming in from the northwest and high-pressure divot. It's going to aim for that little circulation, but you can see what it looks like. Now the hurricane force winds clearly onshore.
Yeah, we've seen the tropical storm force winds, right, island-wide, but there are people all over the island, but in Montego Bay, people having to take shelter, those hurricane wind gusts, based on the Air Force reconnaissance that we had, measuring those hurricane wind gusts, which extend some 30 miles from the center, but we get occasional gusts even beyond that. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I can't tell you what the measurement of the winds are here. We just have a camera.
Right.
But you've got the winds that are persistent. That's the thing about a hurricane when you're talking about winds that...
That shit going hard. Pause. You know, a flatbed, you got flood quick.
Persons who are in harm's way to really and truly get out of harm's way, because this thing is not joking any at all. In fact, this morning at my own place, I had to make sure to reinforce my shutters and so on, just to make sure, because this system will not be playing. I'm telling you, it's not going to be playing.
Dr. Henry, how have you prepared your students at the college for the days ahead?
I knew that question was coming. We do have a critical incident disaster management plan as a college. We have been monitoring the system for the last 2 weeks, and so we entered emergency mode last week, Wednesday. All our systems went online by Thursday. We're able to shut down the college, both at Alice Elmire and also at Foam in Westmoreland. So for Thursday and Friday, we had online virtual learning. But at least the report I was getting from my VP for academics is that like half the students really and truly were actually engaged. But at least there was significant engagement across the college network and so on. So we were prepared really and truly for the eventualities as of now. I was getting some feedback that, some persons wanted to continue teaching yesterday, but I have to remind everybody that all schools are closed and all attention now is really preparing your families and properties and so on, just to make sure that we can ride out the storm.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people are worried about.
Yes.
You being the principal of an institution, people are worried about the loss of learning time. I know Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, even as she addressed the media briefing, Nika, she is probably in the back of her mind worried about the period of that loss of time that the kids will have in school and so on, and trying as best to mitigate that and to actually have a system in place to ensure that it's, you know, we're in a technological age.
Truly.
And that the information can be disseminated, the kids can still be doing work and so on. And I'm sure that's at the forefront of your mind as well, Dr. Henry.
Yes, you know, we had the ravages of COVID-19, and I can tell you we were just about recovering, because the truth is the effects of COVID-19 is still being felt in the system, and we see it among many of our students, their behavior patterns, their learning patterns, and their assessment patterns as well. With this interruption, it's all over again. In fact, I met with my management team yesterday on WhatsApp, because that's the only means we can really meet as we speak. And we were looking at some post-hurricane recovery operations as it stands now. We're not able to really tie down what it will actually look like, because as a community college, we are part of the CCCJ arrangement, and so many of our academic programs are actually quality assured through CCCJ. So there's going to be some amount of reset. We are just at the middle of the semester. A few weeks away would have been examination. So all of that would have to be looked at as well. But the CCCJ does have their plan of action in place. So as soon as the excitement of the system blows over and we're able to come back to some semblance of normality, then the normality in teaching and learning and what will happen for the rest of the semester and so on. Personally, as I see it, I mean, I know the ministry has its emergencies in education system and all of that, but the truth is, the real test is what happens to our students as we bring them back to some semblance of normality in the teaching learning space. So personally speaking, I see some resets going on, a redo of the semester. In the wider education space, I know Dr. True, Minister Dixon, they're not really focused on that right now, because the truth is you want to make sure you have some semblance of a system after this hurricane. So the long-term discussion is what the entire system will look like now. I remember when I was 10 years old and we had Gilbert, it was months after I went back to school. And so the test of our recovery efforts and what happens to our schools, particularly those schools in the western half of Jamaica, many of those schools are going to be impacted. I spoke to Dr. Mark Smith at Monroe a couple of days ago, and he was just exasperated because he was just pulling his institution out of what transpired over a year ago with Beryl. So yes. It's going to be a long haul in terms of how you reset the learning process. But the truth is, our teachers and students are resilient, and they're resilient in times like these. And I know for me at my college, we're resilient in terms of how we pivot and get that normality and so on, and the rest of the system. So I have all faith and confidence that it will happen. It's the amount of resources, is the way in which we're going to be able to get our system back on track, really and truly, and the speed with which I heard Minister Baz just now and Minister Mackenzie just now. So I'm just hoping that at the end of all of this, we're able to get back to some semblance of normality and get our country recovered and get the education system back up and running.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Darian Henry, out there in Trelawney, hunkered down, praying for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Indeed. Javoy Sawyers, who, you know, Javoy, I wonder if you have gotten any sleep, our resident meteorologist here. We've joined Javoy so often for updates, but Javoy has kept us up to date, has kept the public very well educated and informed about what they're to expect. So Javoy, thank you so much again for joining us. Tell us what you're seeing, and not only what you're seeing, is it in line with the projections when we last spoke?
Oftentimes that stuff like that, because
Javoy seems to be muted. Could you unmute for us?
Yourself, your family.
So
yeah, having some audio issues with Javoy, but interested to hear what Javoy has for us, because again,
still out west.
Yeah, and all these projections have been made, and you just want to know if it's in line with what is happening in reality, and of course, We did hear a time of about midday being given for landfall. We want to know if that projection is still on. Javoy?
I'm here.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
So I was saying, you know, is what you're seeing now, what the forecasts are showing, is it matching with the current reality?
Just about. The system was expected to move towards the northeast. It did that through the night last night. It pushed further into the southwestern section of the island. Just about making landfall now. Forward speed has increased somewhat, but still a bit slow. The top wind speeds are about 185 miles per hour, which should be impacting much of the southwest sections of St. Elizabeth at this moment. At wind speeds of that magnitude and the forward speed of the hurricane, sad to say Black River and Treasure Beach bearing the brunt of that right now. Where I am, the wind is gusty, hurricane force strength at times, tropical storm force strength most of the times. But it's expected to get worse on my side before it gets better.
Javoy, where are you? I don't know. It seems like you're in some kind of a tower. You seem very elevated. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm at the Sangster Tower. I am an ATC by profession as well. So I decided to leave with my host. I didn't feel safe. And the safest spot I could think of was at work in the tower. I have connectivity. I have light. The best place to keep everybody else informed.
What does an air traffic controller do in a time like this, Mr. Sawyers?
Well, we still have persons manning the tower. We have to be ready once the system leaves the area to resume ATC operations as soon as possible. But the airports are closed. The only flight in our airspace now is the only flight close to the island now is the Hurricane Hunters in and out of the hurricane.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting phrase, Hurricane Hunters, Javoy. And I've been scrolling on social media. I've seen a lot of them from overseas talking about flying into the hurricane. Can you just explain that process? I don't know if I mean, I've seen them show videos and so on. I don't even layman kind of has an idea in their head of what flying into a hurricane entails.
Well, you have two different aircraft that do the flying into the hurricane. One is a reconnaissance aircraft. Another one is a smaller, more nimble aircraft. What they do is they penetrate the hurricane center and they drop instruments in the eye of the hurricane that measures parameters like the wind speed, the central pressure, the temperature of the eye. All of this is plugged into mathematical instruments that calculate and give the forecast of what the storm is doing based on the current atmospheric conditions. So they, in the process of flying through the eye, they measure the wind speed as they approach the eye, the wind direction. They try to find the center of the system by extrapolating the winds around a fixed point and then penetrate the eye before dropping drop zones in the center of the hurricane.
Mr. Sawyers, you mentioned penetrating the eye, entering the eye, all of that. Is there someone in an aircraft entering the eye of the hurricane, or is it just a drone type device?
No, it's an aircraft with people in it. Like I said, it's built to withstand certain flexes and certain wind speeds up to a point. We saw yesterday that they had to come out of the hurricane because turbulence was too high. But they have been in and out of the hurricane through the period, keeping all the weather persons informed about the current conditions and the forecast about the hurricane.
Yeah, so Javoy, you mentioned that they measure certain things. You mentioned the pressure. And explain that to me, because I think you're saying that, you know, I've seen people say that how low the pressure is. Something about, I think it's measured in millibars or something like that.
It is.
And then you're talking about the dryness as well. Like, what does all that mean? I know you talk about temperatures and warmer temperatures being good for hurricanes to develop. But talk about the dryness. And the pressure being lower, meaning that it's a more powerful storm.
All right, so imagine you're pulling liquid through a straw, right? That straw is the column of atmosphere. When you pull the liquid out of the straw, you're creating a low pressure at the bottom of the straw that creates that suction for more fluid liquid to come up through the straw. pretty much the same thing in the atmosphere. The atmosphere has lifting that reduces the pressure at the surface, and the pressure reduction at the surface causes more wind, more air to rush into the center of the system. So as the pressure falls at the center of the hurricane, the wind speeds pick up. So the lower the pressure is, the more intense the hurricane, and that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing minimum pressure about 892 millibars, I think, and subsequent increase in wind speeds now 185. Just about making landfall, so I'm not expecting any more increase in the strength, hopefully, of the hurricane now. But yeah, they measure the parameters such as pressure, the dryness of the eye, as the hurricane, the thunderstorms around the center of the hurricane create outflow at the top of the thunderstorms. The outflow has nowhere else to go but down into the eye. And when air sinks in the eye, it compresses, because based on, if you go up a hill, you experience a popping of the air, right? So air pressure is lowest the higher you go, right? So when you descend down the hill, air pressure increases. So when that air at the top of the hurricane descends down into the eye, it's compressed, and by compressing it, it then warms.
We're
so
looking.
the eye tends to be warm and cloud-free.
So Javoy, what we're looking at on camera now is actually the aircraft utilized during Hurricane Milton, I believe this is, that showed, and Milton was a Category 3 storm, and it shows the hurricane hunters as we're describing them. These hunters were in this craft, and we're looking inside the craft. We're looking at the the exterior of the craft. We're also seeing that it's really cloudy inside the eye, and what we would have seen is some of the activities that would have taken place within the craft during their trek to the eye of the storm. Certainly that's no feat for the ill-experienced or inexperienced. You have to be highly trained for that.
Definitely not. And you have to have some nerve or some calmness about you. Because we've been on aircraft and we've experienced some level of turbulence. And even though you know that it's safe and is expected and this is normal, you can imagine being in extreme turbulence during flying through a hurricane.
Right.
So where do these aircraft take off from? Do they just take off just like a commercial aircraft, or do they have special takeoff areas?
Normally they tend to come in to the closest possible port to the hurricane system. I think they took off from Manly when the hurricane was toward the southeast. They try not to have too much fuel, because then that determines how heavy the aircraft is. But they take off from airports around close to the hurricane center, just to be in proximity if they need to return and come back. You can imagine if they're taking off from far distances, how long it would take them to get into the hurricane to measure anything in time for an update.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get from Javoy, as we come back to Melissa and come back to whether projections are meeting up with reality. Are we still looking at midday for landfall? We want to establish some key timelines now.
Well, I'm looking at landfall just about now. The ice should be encroaching on the southwest coast now.
Okay.
Areas in Black River should have either just about finishing the first half of the eye wall and entering into the eye now. Based on radar that I'm looking in front of me, the eye does seem to be moving across southwestern coastline just about now.
Okay, so landfall about 10:53, so a little bit, so within the window, maybe a little bit earlier than expected.
Yes.
And you're looking at the hurricane conditions are the worst conditions to be affecting the island for how long?
We can expect the eye has just come ashore, and that took some time from this morning. So another 6 hours or so before the eye makes it to the other end of the island, across Trelawney coastline in Trelawney St. Anne thereabout. But then the impacts behind the eye after it exits the country should last well into the night, into the early tomorrow morning on Wednesday.
6 hours.
6 hours of what sort of conditions across these different parishes?
Well, most definitely tropical storm conditions will persist for that 6 hours. The hurricane conditions may be quicker than that because, as I said, it's a very small radius of hurricane of 185 miles per hour wind speeds around the eye. You're not expecting 6 hours of 185 miles per hour winds, but certainly 6 hours of tropical storm force conditions to hurricane conditions to begin to continue lashing the island. Well, most of the west and central areas of the island. I understand Kingston is pretty much the opposite of this. Well, not the opposite, but not as intense in Kingston and other eastern areas. But you can expect the rainfall to continue across much of the eastern parishes, and not out of the question thunderstorms that may have embedded heavy thunder showers and squalls with strong gusty winds at time across eastern parishes.
Well, we're in studio, and I can tell you, ever so often we hear the battering that the building is taking, and this is a very sturdy building, one of the most solid in Kingston, and it's taking a battering. Every time I look at Jordan, I hear something like something is slapping the building, and it's the wind.
Yeah, and also we can expect a few branches to come loose and probably hit the structures that you are in. When I had to leave my home to come to the tower, I was cognizant of the gusts and the wind and the branches that a few branches were fell across the roadway on my way here, and even now I'm seeing a few fronds break off the palm trees on the highway. The palm trees are resilient, so I'm not expecting them to fall over, but other trees with a wider spread to catch more of the wind, they will uproot as the soil is pretty much saturated at this point.
And as firstly, well, this is going to be a two-part question, Javoy. So the expectation was always that this storm, as it was moving westward when it was south of Jamaica, that it would have always gone northeast. All of you were saying that, all of you, the experts, were saying that, Javoy, and we as the layperson couldn't necessarily understand. We're saying, but isn't there a possibility it just keeps going west? And you guys kept telling us it's a glimmer of hope. You may be able to cling on to that slim hope, but no, it is expected to go northeast after it makes that westerly movement. Why was that? Can you explain why that was? What the atmospheric pressures were around it that were pushing it back to the northeast?
So initially, when the system was just a tropical storm or a tropical wave to the southeast, it didn't have a defined center for any of the mathematical models to latch on to give accurate forecasts. The models were giving forecasts based on where they suspect the center to develop. So the forecast spread was initially wide from anywhere to curving north into Hispaniola to continuing west into Nicaragua, Honduras. But the moment the system developed a well-defined center, the models latched on. The models knew that the high pressure over the Eastern Caribbean and as well the Western Caribbean would battle for control of directing the hurricane. The hurricane is basically a leaf in a stream. The main steering flows are the pressure systems around it. Two high pressure systems. Can imagine the hurricane being in the middle of two gears, one rotating one direction, the other direction. So in between you have opposing wind directions, so that the hurricane was wobbling in between the two. We always knew that that high pressure system would break down, and the cold fronts from the US at this time of the year they're pretty much standard. We once they appear on our models, we know that tropical systems will follow the cold front northward. The timing of the cold front north was always an issue. The tropical system, Melissa, remained weak for some time, and the weaker the system developed remains, is the more it feels the effects of the lower wind direction. So it kept pushing on west, and we were saying that if it developed fast enough, it will begin to feel the effects of the upper level winds and that cold front. The many cold fronts that came before could pull it northwards, which is why the models were hinting at it moving north between us and Haiti at the time. But at that time, the Melissa remained somewhat weak, somewhat highly sheared off. So the thunderstorms weren't high enough to feel the pull north of those cold fronts. But now that it's a category 5, well high up in the atmosphere, the next cold front that came down, albeit a little bit too late for us, pulling the system to the north. We expected that pull. We saw how Melissa was slowing down, and as I alluded earlier, when you are driving a big truck, you have to slow down to turn a corner. So when Melissa felt that pull, she had to slow down a little bit for the cold front to tug it northward, and which is what is happening or has happened now. The system moving across us to the northeast.
I'm looking at something that appeared to be a sort of looping of the path of the system. What would have accounted for that? Is that what you just explained, or is that count?